Hello my friends, Mia DeBolt here, bringing you more transparency in trading. Thank you so much for joining me on day 3 of the FTMO Repeat Challenge, as well as day 3 of the Funded Trader Repeat Challenge. So I took those trades on Friday, and I have to tell you that I was really looking forward to Friday's trading. Not only was ICT live streaming, but more importantly, it was the end of the week, end of the month, and end of the quarter. So I was really expecting big moves for Friday's trading. However, the trading didn't necessarily end up the way that I was expecting. So let's dive into the charts and you can see exactly what trades I took, the reasoning behind it, my mindset, and then also the lessons learned. Okay, so Friday opened up and we did have red folder news at 5:30 or 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. The 6:30 open also dipped down into this new week open gap and it filled some of the opening range gap. So one of the things that I like to see is that price starts going down and starts filling this opening range gap. However, it didn't end up doing that. And so it pushed up and took this weekly high. This orange line is the weekly high and it was taken during the morning session. Okay, so this is kind of where I was marking up higher time frame fair value gaps, 15-minute fair value gaps, and I was also listening to ICT as he was teaching on YouTube. So this is kind of where I want to jump in. This fib level is the event horizon. So we're already above the event horizon. We're in a premium, so buying is a lot more risky, and I was kind of looking for sells. I was expecting the opening range gap to start being filled, and so that was kind of my mindset. I was listening to ICT as well, his wisdom, and he was not really looking for buys as well because we're in such a premium. We've been going up all week. I was expecting to start seeing displacement to the downside, and that was what I was looking for. All right, so here's where we started consolidating. The DXY started pushing up really strongly, and so this is something that ICT was watching, that I was watching real time, and I was expecting the sell side to start being taken with ferocity. So this is kind of where I'm going to jump in and show you exactly where I started my trade. Okay, so we're at a daily wick, consequent encroachment. We've gone up and created a volume imbalance, and so I just entered this on a 1%. And I enter both accounts on 1%. So it does go down into profit right away. It's starting to run away from that fair value gap and leave this. However, this is a higher risk trade. Now, I was actually thinking about this trade as something that was going to continue down and start taking sell sides, start filling some imbalance, and we had a lot of upside in the morning. So I was looking at that discount fair value gap, and that was my initial target. So that was where I was going to take a partial, is here, and then possibly see if it goes down to the algorithm open. So I was really expecting this to start running and start taking sell side. However, it does start stalling here and start going up. Now, mind you, I am listening to ICT, and here's kind of where I'm doing my independent analysis. I see this 1 minute fair value gap. It does lay a candle over that, so that's kind of where ICT was looking at this as that fair value gap that you do want that to stay open if it is going to run for sell side. So that's the first indication that I was on the wrong side. Here's another thing. I also entered on 1%, another 1% here. So I'm in this for 2% with FTMO, and I also had a 0.5% addition on the funded trader. Now, the reason I did that is, one, I wanted to know that I could do it on the funded trader because it has a maximum of 50 lots, and so that's something that I was testing out. But more importantly, I really was looking to be aggressive because if it's going to take sell side, then I was really looking to maximize my profits there and to start building my profit cushion. So here's where I should have killed the trade, because listening to ICT while I'm actually trading, I was just being stubborn. I saw SMT divergence. I saw that the DXY had pushed up, and I was expecting this to start running. I had a 1 minute breaker here that I was also taking a look at. It technically is not above the breaker. It just went about a tick above the breaker high, and then I was expecting this to start running down. So I was kind of being stubborn. Just completely honestly, I was looking to have the sell side taken. I was trying to force my will upon it, and I was just looking at all of the optimism of this, and I was listening to his analysis but I was not really heeding his warning, which is once it closes above this 1 minute fair value gap, that's when I should have killed the trade. And so I really don't like taking losses. I'm still really working on when to actually kill a trade. And so that's where this is a really great learning lesson. And I'm really actually happy in retrospect that this happened, because one, I know that I can actually risk more on the funded trader. I just need to enter a couple of smaller positions. So I did have a 1% and then a 0.5% risk. And so that just tells me that the 50 lot maximum on 8 cap can be worked around. And so that's something that in the future is going to really benefit me. However, not listening to my mentor and not listening to ICT while he's actually saying this. So just mind you, it is 8 o'clock already and I'm already in this trade, and you can see that I can minimize my risk by closing this out right now, but I don't end up doing it. So I'm just going to fast forward this because I am listening to ICT, and I believe he says it about 4 or 5 times to actually close the trade, and I don't do it. So it does end up closing above this volume imbalance, above this 1 minute fair value gap, and I do end up killing the trade. However, I do that with almost a maximum loss on the funded trader. So you can see that it's just accumulating a lot more orders around this level, and it does respect this 1 minute fair value gap as support. So that is something that I in the future am going to kill the trade no matter how much underwater I am. And this is a higher risk trade, so I should have killed at least one position already. So that's just lessons to learn. Okay, so it's already 8:13, so it's 13 minutes past the time that I really should have killed it back here, and it's still continuing up. So I'm just really being stubborn here. I think I even say that I'm going to stick with this trade, and I put a little thought bubble there. And I really am expecting the fair value gaps to be filled and for sell side to be taken. So I'm really just in this mindset of shorting, and it's really not going in my direction. So I'm really just not following ICT, and I'm just being really stubborn here. So this is another reason to really just listen to ICT and study what he's actually saying, because while I was actually listening to his live stream, I was more in this trade to try to minimize my risk at this point, and I was not really paying attention to exactly what he was saying. So that's where I killed 50% of the trade, and then I'm still in this and it's still going against me. So I do end up closing it. So I do end up closing this for about 1.57. So remember, I was in this for 2%. So I did save my capital a little bit here, and I'm underwater now in FTMO. I'm also underwater with the funded trader as well. So I lost about the same on the funded trader. It was like 1.53, and that was something that I closed the trade. Even though I closed the trade, both the spreads would have taken me out at a lot higher than 1.5% risk. All right, so I just continue to listen to ICT. I'm watching for what the reaction is here on the weekly open gap. And then we also have a weekly volume imbalance. Now, here's the thing that I wasn't really listening to my own analysis because I was so into studying what ICT was sharing, not really listening to or following his instructions of closing the trade and when to actually close it. I had to feel that for myself. So I was kind of being like his son Cameron, where I was like, no, I have to do this myself. And that's kind of where I got into hot water with my trade. Completely honestly, I wouldn't do anything differently because now I have that lesson learned, and you'll see that that actually comes in handy in the next trade because I apply that lesson to the next trade. So one thing that I do have to share about the analysis that I had in the morning was that I was actually expecting the weekly candle to close that weekly volume imbalance. So I was expecting a candle to lay over that, and that's what ended up happening. So I should have listened to my analysis. So if there was anything that I didn't listen to ICT, it should have been that I could have bought. I would have bought. And so coulda, shoulda, woulda, that doesn't do anything for your bottom line. However, it's something for me to note in my journal and to be confident in any kind of buys in the future, because I was looking for big moves on Friday. However, the big moves were against me. Okay, so that brings us to trade number 2. And so trade number 2 happened because I was still looking for shorts. Like I said, I was being really stubborn in the morning. I was expecting shorts, and because we were in such a premium, I was expecting them to be a low resistance liquidity run, and I really wanted to be a part of it. So when price actually came up here to the weekly volume imbalance and came up to the consequent encroachment and reacted, I was looking for this type of short and for sell side to start being taken. And I'm still looking for displacement to the downside. So it does look nicely here. So I do end up pushing the button on an up candle. Okay, so I'm in this trade for 1% for the FTMO because I'm halving my risk, and 0.75% on the funded trader. So I'm just marking this up because this is kind of what my trade looks like as per my stop loss on the CFD. And so that's displacing nicely. So far, the funded trader is not working in my favor just because of its spread. However, I do have this marked up as my TP. So it's a 5-minute bullish order block, and so I want that to be taken, and that would mean that sell side would continue to go down. So that's what I'm looking for, that's what I was expecting, and that's what I was anticipating. Okay, so I'm gonna fast forward this because it does take about an hour. It's a high resistance liquidity run. It does end up going back and forth for quite a bit. I am still listening to the ICT live stream, and so he is saying that there is accumulation at the 50% level of the actual swing that he's anticipating, and so he still is looking for bullishness, and that is kind of where I continue to hold onto this trade. Even though it does go back to my entry, it displaces down and it does go back and forth, so it is accumulating at the 50% of the swing, and so it's displacing nicely. However, it stops at that 1-minute fair value gap, and that's from the morning, and so that's kind of where I'm watching this and wanting this to not only just displace with a nice fair value gap on the way down, but we also are in the lower half or the lower quarter of that swing, and so it should displace nicely down if it's going to continue. So that's something that I in the future will be watching, and probably just kill the trade when it actually reacts from that 1-minute fair value gap, because it doesn't end up displacing, it doesn't end up continuing down, and it doesn't end up keeping some fair value gaps open. So that's kind of where I need to actually watch this accumulation and make sure that that accumulation is not a reversal. Okay, so it should use the fair value gap and the weekly open gap as resistance. So there's a 1-minute fair value gap here and a weekly open gap right here. And so it does end up using that as resistance, and it does displace one more time down nicely. There's a 15-minute volume imbalance that it does end up laying a candle over, so that's a nice indication too, gives me a nice warm and fuzzy. However, this 1-minute fair value gap is now the point of interest, and that's what should keep price down if it's going to continue down to the sell side. Okay, so this is where I'm starting to prepare for 75% to be taken off here, and so that's where this starts to accumulate instead of really displacing nicely to the sell side. So that's where I still need to kind of watch this price and study it a little bit so that I can really make sure that in the future I'm killing the trade when I actually make the profits that I make. So I have a 1% potential here and a 0.46 potential here, so I'd be recouping a little bit. I'd be recouping about 1/3 of my loss from the morning and about 2/3 of my loss from the morning with FTMO. However, I don't end up killing it. It does end up continuing to the downside. It gives me a little bit of a fair value gap here. However, it just creeps down, so it's not making displacement, and it is coming to about the consequent encroachment of the 1 hour. So it's filling that 1 hour fair value gap, but it's really respecting that 1-minute fair value gap right there. Okay, so when ICT says that 3 PD arrays when they're disrespected, that's really when you kill the trade. And so the short-term high is taken, this fair value gap is filled, so it starts to disrespect the upside. So 50% is already traded to, it should run away from this. And so on that next candle is probably when I should have just closed the trade altogether. So I'm watching that 1 minute fair value gap. I've learned from the morning session that if it closes above that 1 minute fair value gap, it's not likely to go down to the sell side. And so that's kind of where I'm expecting to kill that trade as well. So again, it's just accumulating under that 1 minute fair value gap, but it's not displacing down to the downside. And then when it does, it immediately rejects up and breaks structure. So that's again another indication that I should have just closed that trade right all together right there, and I start moving my stop to profit. But the good news is that I actually have my stop loss in profit, and so I don't get stopped out of this trade. I actually walk away with a little bit of profit. Okay, so thanks to the spread of the funded trader, I actually don't get to manually close this. It just takes out my stop here, and so I believe that was a 0.16, and I closed out with 0.51 with FTMO, so I got a little win out of that, and I ended up walking away for the rest of the day. So the reason being is that I was on the ICT live stream. I had expended a lot of mental capital just being in that high resistance liquidity run, and I had also taken a loss for the day. So I was willing to end my trading day on that win and just walk away for the rest of the week. So at the end of the day, I was at negative 1.01% for the day, and I was at a 0.74% loss for the FTMO. And for the funded trader, I'd lost 1.42%, as well as being at a balance of 1.57% underwater. So needless to say, I learned a lot of lessons. Losses are really great because the ability to actually dust yourself off and to get back on the horse really tells a lot about yourself. So it's not revenge trading if you're continuing to trade according to your plan and continuing to wait for confirmations. So that second trade was a really good trade. I had followed my trade plan. However, the lessons that I had learned was so important because knowing when to kill a trade, knowing when to get out of a trade is just as important to preserve your capital as knowing when to exit a winning trade. So in both cases, I learned a lot of lessons. One of the most important lessons that I learned was to listen to ICT and listen to his mentorship, make sure that I'm killing trades that are going against me. And so I've done that many times. I've been really stubborn with my trades and just held on to them for too long. And so knowing when to actually preserve my capital is just as much of a win as taking a win itself. So my friends, this is an important lesson to learn. It's important to actually dust ourselves off, to give ourselves love and grace, even though we've had a hard day, even though we've had a rough trading session. It does not mean that our character is such of a loser. There is no such thing as a loser trader. There is a loser trader mentality. And so I choose not to have that. And so if you take a loss for the day, it does not mean that you are a loser yourself. Okay, my friends, that distinction is so important. And that's where I'm going to move into this next week with a positive attitude like I always do, and I'm really going to be looking forward to trading for the first 3 days of this week. It is going to be NFP week, and so I'm going to be a little bit more cautious to wait and demand more of my confirmations, and I am going to be looking for shorts. All right, so just to review my trades, just on a static chart, you can see here that there's a big opening range gap still down here. However, once that fair value gap at 1050 was disrespected and there's a candle that closed above it, that's when I should have killed the trade. So again, that's something that I learned and I applied in the second trade. And so this is the second trade. And so just knowing that I wasn't looking to buy, I was only looking to sell, that's something that I need to actually watch and be mindful of in the future. Had I not been listening to ICT, I probably would have bought for the morning. So that's something that I have to assess for myself and make sure that I am actually following my own analysis and my own trade plan. Because I am a little bit more of a risk taker than ICT maybe, that is something that I was looking for here, was this opening range gap to be filled. So the volume imbalance, I was expecting that to be traded through. And then there's another daily high here. And then there is also this opening range gap that was unfilled from a previous month. And so that's something that I do like to see. There is a new week open gap as well up here. So doing the standard deviation, so this was all the way up to 200% of that standard deviation. And so that would have been a beautiful buy. However, this is the sell that I took, and this is kind of where it started to accumulate here and did not continue down to the downside. So that was just the short little win. All right, so this is the 1 hour chart, and this is kind of where I'm going to be looking for the confirmations that we are going to the downside, because needless to say, we were very bullish all week last week and the last couple of weeks. And so you can see here that we have two big opening range gaps that still have not been filled. However, this is NFP week, so we can go all the way up to this unfilled open range gap and then start pushing down. So that's kind of what I'm expecting, is for price to continue to fill some of this imbalance up here, maybe even take that pool of liquidity that's on the daily. And so there's a big pool of liquidity up here, some imbalance up here, and then I'm expecting for it to start falling. So historically, April has been a down month, and so this was April of 2022, and so it was a very down month, and so it went up to the consequent encroachment of this monthly, almost to that, and then it started going down. So that's kind of what I'm expecting, is for the month to be a down month, but how we start off will determine kind of where we're going. So I'm just going to be waiting to see what the open is like today and then do my analysis from there. All right, my friends, this is the over the shoulder look at my accounts. So I am on day 3 of the FTMO challenge, and you can see here that I did take a loss, and I did take 2 losses because I did double up my risk, and then I took a small win as well on Friday. So I do have a lot more time in the bank, so I have until the 21st of April, so I'm not looking to really push it too hard this week. If I do see my breaker pattern, or I do see some strong confirmations that we're going to the sell side, then I will be looking to double up and make sure that I have my maximum leverage going in that direction. All right, so here's the funded trader, and I did take a loss, and you can see here that I am on negative 1.57% balance, and then I did take a loss in the morning, and I took 2 losses because I did do 1%, and then I did a 0.5%, and then I took a small win. So here on the funded trader, I have almost till the end of April, and so I'll be watching that closely and making sure that I manage that well. So that is day 3 of the funded trader. I hope that you got a lot of value from this video. So I look at losses as the cost of success, and so I invested a lot on Friday. I invested mental and emotional capital, as well as the capital of my account. So this week I'll be trading according to my plan. I'll be waiting for my confirmations, and I'll also be taking the lessons that I learned from Friday's trading session and bringing it forward with me. All right, my friends, till the next trade, I look forward to it. So if you're looking to continue this journey with me from where I'm at now to the 7-figure mark, I know that I'm going to get there. It's just a matter of implementing these lessons, continuing to learn from ICT, and continuing to listen to his sage advice. All right, my friends, make sure that you subscribe below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next trade. Bye.